that wasn't because of Charlie Kirk. Trump might say it's because of Charlie Kirk, but it is a broader systemic failure born out of the way that the Democrats have presented themselves to the youth, and just the way that they have been completely unable to address any of these issues, like the affordability crisis and whatnot. Oh yeah, we were going to start off with obviously some drama, a little bit of drama. The Wired article came out yesterday. I covered it obviously on the stream. It's a big controversy. And in the Wired article, they actually don't even talk about like Unfuck America. That's another like Democrat Party affiliated group that's like getting TikTokers to go all around and do like the Unfuck America tour or whatever. But apparently the person who runs it, who is like super pro Destiny, came after me and said, Hasan the Hun, bitch, please, you're not about to try and out progressive me while you were sitting on your ass streaming. I've been getting progressives elected. Stay mad. Oh, FYI, I used to work at TYT. My NDA recently expired. Not sure what that second part means because I haven't worked at TYT for years. I didn't even know this person worked at TYT as well. But this, I think, is a pretty solid response to this argument. Anyway, good retweet here. They think you own TYT? I don't know. But yeah, Gato Fumador responses, I've been getting progressives elected. You helped elect a single Virginia state delegate in 2021. Everyone else you've worked with has lost. Damn. She gonna leak you fart in the office a lot? Brother, I didn't work with her. I wasn't around, I don't think, when she was there. You removed the retweet? Oh, it's fine. You guys need to stop. But she could smell the fart, jackass. Yeah, I farted so hard at the office that it just had a lasting impact. David Parkman was slandering you on TikTok. Oh boy, nice. Anyway, I knew that was going to be a point of controversy because obviously nobody likes to be outed as taking money from the Democratic Party, but yeah, one key thing that's come out of this, by the way, every person mentioned the Wired article funded by a PAC and using Bernie Sanders as a straw man to discredit the article. Yeah, every person that is like a Democrat operative that is trying to be a Democrat operative. By the way, I'm trying to talk about something serious and you dumb fucks are talking about farting, man. Please stop. Oh my God, you guys are so annoying. Jesus Christ, lock in. Y'all are all 30. I know you are 30 plus. We've done the community census. You can't be behaving like this. Okay? God damn, dude. Y'all are 30 plus. Lock in. Anyway, this was the short and sweet summary. Influencers including communication about the program and in some cases an onboarding session for those receiving payments from the 1630 fund, including Olivia Giuliana, David Pakman. Scoop, a powerful dark money group is secretly funding high-profile Democratic Party influencers. Big liberal content creators are being paid up to $8,000 a month to push party messaging. But the problem is the goals of the Democratic Party are not to actually do something right by the working class, okay? If that was their goal and they were funding this network of content creators, then sure, it's normal, it's good. The Republicans do it all the time. But we shouldn't be demanding a network of Charlie Kirks, a network of mercenary Charlie Kirks, but blue MAGA style. Okay? When people came to me about the whole Joe Rogan of the left, we need a Joe Rogan of the left, all this shit, okay? I kept repeating over and over again, it's not a Joe Rogan of the left situation. Like, the problem is larger than this, okay? The problem is far more consequential than this. Like, yes, you're right. All of these people, all of the political grifters on the right are in some way, shape, or form a part of this infrastructure that the Republicans have designed. And they're far better than the Democrats are. They're on the ball when it comes to like farming out talent from independent media, right? They do it. They 100% do it. Okay. This is a thing that they do. But the major issue here is that when they're farming out talent from the right, from independent spheres and whatnot, they actually still try to offer treats to the base. Democrats, on the other hand, don't do that. They're constantly in a defensive posture. They don't have any discernible policies that you can identify them with. These are major issues that you cannot overcome. The greatest example of this is the last election cycle. Kamala Harris's policies for an angry base of support was basically to say, you shouldn't be, we're not going to fix any of these issues. We don't even have any real serious issues at all. You should just be afraid of the Republicans, which there is truth to that sentiment, right? Like, you should be afraid of Republicans. I kept repeating that over and over again as well, but it didn't matter because they were constantly running in the direction of right-wing ideology, thinking that they were going to be able to pick away some of these Republicans in the base, some of these Republican voters, and bring them to the Democratic Party. It didn't work that way, right? It was a failure. She out-money spent the Trump administration by massive margins. She outraised the Trump admin by big margins, but it didn't matter because no matter how much money you dump, no matter how much you're in front of people's eyeballs, no matter how much you can get their attention, it still doesn't matter if the policies that you are getting in front of them with are dog shit. Okay? That's it. You can burn $1 billion. You can spend $1 billion saying, I'm a small business. I'm going to give $50,000 in tax credits to small businesses. But that's not an impactful message. That's not a good policy that you can be identified with, right? That's not like a holistic message. That's not something that you can actually present to as broad a base as possible. This is part of the reason why I like universal programs. And I kept repeating this over and over again throughout the campaign, and Democrats yelled at me for it. They were like, you're attacking Kamala Harris, and you're the reason why she's losing, blah, 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 all this shit. You're the reason why she lost. Anyway, Mitch Voter says, I always thought the Dem influencer hyping Biden felt like reassuring middle-aged people that Biden had young support rather than actually expand his appeal and outreach to young Dem voters, which is true. That is precisely what these guys do. Olivia does this role. Like, this is her role. Her goal is not dissimilar to Charlie Kirk in that same vein. Like, Charlie Kirk only recently started reaching a younger audience because of TikTok. But for the majority of his career, his goal was to get money. His goal was to get money from right-wing Republican mega donors like Foster Freeze and basically lie to them that they were making an impact with the youth vote. Okay? Only until TikTok, college campus like debate, the college campus debate videos did Charlie Kirk actually start securing some kind of prominence in a younger audience. And that wasn't because of Charlie Kirk either. That was because there was a dramatic shift happening within the right-wing youth, okay? That wasn't because of Charlie Kirk. Trump might say it's because of Charlie Kirk, but it is a broader systemic failure born out of the way that the Democrats have presented themselves to the youth, and just the way that they have been completely unable to address any of these issues, like the affordability crisis and whatnot. Whereas Donald Trump was seen as a mover and shaker in this area. He said, I'm going to be a mallet. I'm going to hatchet through these institutions that haven't helped you, right? And that's why he was able to make an impact, especially with young people. Now, that impact is whittling away because young people who were too young to remember the COVID era, okay, young people who were too young to remember what Trump 1 looked like, that became like more invested in politics because now they're 18 plus, right? This past election cycle, were willing to take a gamble again with Donald Trump. Okay? That's it. There were a lot of young people who were willing to take a gamble. It's part of that is COVID. Part of that is having lockdowns in your more formative years throughout your adolescence when you're supposed to be like around other people and like, going down the wrong rabbit holes, right? That's part of it. I mean, it's a massive, massive issue, right? In any case, the Democrats are not going to solve this problem by just like simply putting a shit ton of money into content creators who do not make this impact, who do not have this impact. They need to try to figure out why some content creators do actually have staying power in this space. Not to hype myself up too much, but, why is it that so many of these other guys don't actually have that motion? Why is it that they don't have this kind of motion with young people in general? Why is it that some of these guys simply do not have any staying power amongst the youth at all. It's because they are there to defend the Democratic Party. Whereas on the Republican media ecosystem, the fake independent Republican content creators are in tune with the base's demands. That's why the Jeffrey Epstein stuff was like a big point of controversy, a big point of drama, because the base was demanding more information. And the administration was like, for the first time ever, not giving them that treat. And that's why they were like, what the f- do you mean you're not going to get details? Hold on now. And the Trump administration did what? Find other red meat to throw at the base. Instead of just being like, all right, first they behaved like Democrats. First they panicked and behaved like Democrats. And they kept saying, oh, this is not a real thing. This is not a real thing. Don't care about this. If you care about this, you're stupid. And then everyone was like, what the f- do you mean? You told us to care about this. So then they turned around and tried to find different things to make people pay attention to, like Obama, remember Obama. And now they're moving on from the conversation a little bit. I think it'll still come back. But ultimately, the Republicans have they make better assessments about their base's interest. They try to find things that they care about and offer them red meat. Dan got mad at you on TikTok. Who's Dan? Dan Bongino? Anyway, but yeah, I think that this method that the Democrats are deploying here by using like Brian Tyler Cohen and all these other people, especially in this like incredibly shady way, is only effective if the Democrats are willing and able to change their attitude. Okay, they probably meant David. Okay, if the Democratic Party unironically decides that they are the Medicare for all party, okay, if they decide that they are the anti-Israel, anti-genocide party, for example, it sounds laughable to even bring this up because you're like, they're never going to do that. But if they were to do that, and then they pumped all of these content creators who will be loyal soldiers that defend the Dems regardless, then they could actually make an impact. Otherwise, this is no different than having $1 billion that you burned with messaging bad policies and putting bad policies in front of people and then losing the election in the same exact way that they lost the election last time around. That's it. The fact that some of you think that I'm a young person that can have the political leanings of Bernie Sanders is part of the reason we lost many young men in droves. I'm not being paid to speak my beliefs. I just don't let you all bully me for being who I am. Don't like it tough. I haven't been paid a dime to do anything in Texas politics, by the way. It turns out she was. Don't know who else to let folks. There's a subplot in politics happening because apparently someone is paying GOP influencers outside of Texas to say specific things about Texas politics because influencers in Texas have to disclose if they're being paid for political posts. It's just crazy that she like talked about how she wasn't paid for this shit at all for the longest goddamn time. Why are you trying to start a war between the left just because Pac-Man and BTC aren't as left as you are? But isn't it good to help other creators on the left? Pac-Man isn't even in there. Why are you lying? Wait, what? 26 months subscriber? I'm not. I don't want to start a war between the left, okay? First of all, I'm sorry. One of the most pressing issues right now is Israel, okay? And it's an unimaginably popular issue to hold on to. And if you're an independent content creator that's being paid to defend the Democratic Party and you don't actually disclose that information, and you also simultaneously never say anything about the most popular issue that you could be on board with, then obviously I'm going to take issue with that because I'm going to take issue with that for two reasons. One, because it's immoral, in my opinion, to stay quiet in the face of such tremendous injustice. But beyond the immorality of it all, it's also insane. It's also stupid from a political point of view. If you want the Democrats to win, if you're a blue no matter who type of person, why the fuck aren't you yelling at the influencers that refuse to speak on this? And why the fuck aren't you yelling at the goddamn party that refuses to speak and communicate on this? From a partisan perspective, you know what I mean? I know, but they aren't Democrats. What? What are you saying? This is the problem because the Democrat base, okay? The Democrat base's opinion, the opinion that you hold that like the party is infallible, we must defend it, is the reason why the party gets away with just being bad, Okay. The party gets away with being a corporate subsidized, lighter version of the Republicans. We need the party to fight. Okay. We need the party to fight for your rights, my rights, everybody else's rights. We need the party to actively combat growing fascism in this country. This is not a joke. You know, it's happening right now, every single day. The issue is the goal of these guys is to basically delude the masses into thinking that it's good. It's good that the Dems are not saying anything about Gaza. You know, you shouldn't care about that at all. Look, Donald Trump is stupid. He's going to die any moment now. Like, and of course they arrive at like correct issues with regular frequency because they ultimately being in opposition to the Republicans is correct, right? But the problem is you need to go beyond that. You need to demand that the party actively defend Americans. You need the party to actively defend immigrants. You need the party to actively defend the principle of being against genocide. And if you don't do that, then you lose the space to grifters and charlatans on the right. There is a reason why Tucker Carlson and Marjorie Taylor Greene have made tremendous impact. They are out and about loudly screaming about how much they oppose Israel, and they're benefiting from it. They're benefiting from it because there is a massive void on the left side on this pivotal issue that everyone can see is abhorrent. How do you not see this? A lot of people tune this out. They think, oh, Hasan, you're being a fucking pussy again. All you care about is Gaza, blah, blah, blah. But like, I'm making two different arguments here. I'm not even making the morality argument when I say this, okay? Even though that is first and foremost the most consequential part of this conversation. But even from a pure, amoral, calculated political stance that you are taking, from a partisan perspective, you should never allow Marjorie Taylor Greene to be the leading voice in Congress on refusing to send weapons to Israel. Never. That's crazy. That is a massive failure, especially when there are party members in the Democratic lineup that have been punished aggressively for being champions on this cause, whether it be Rashida Tlaib or Ilhan Omar or even AOC. People have yelled at them, okay? So when the tide is actually shifting and more Americans every single day are coming on board with this reality, for the Dems to just like kind of sit around and not do anything and not say anything and allow Marjorie Taylor Greene to ever be one of the leading voices in this conversation is a massive fucking failure. For the for the liberal content creators to not actively be the guys that you go to hear about what the fuck is going on in Gaza and create a void in that media ecosystem is basically handing that to Nick Fuentes and Tucker Carlson. A lot of you guys, if you still defend the liberal content creators who don't speak on this issue and you defend the Democratic Party that doesn't speak on this issue convincingly, are not realizing that this is a massive failure, a massively consequential failure that is causing people to think, well, these are the earnest guys. I guess the only real ones out there that are speaking out against Israel are right-wingers. It makes you wonder why, like, actually, why would they keep their mouth shut on this issue? Because they care only about donors and they care about defending the Democratic Party. This is a problem. And it's an especially annoying problem when the issue is so obvious and also no longer an unpopular one. Okay? A lot of people that came before these cynical people, these grifters, already did the fucking work. Okay, they already put their reputation on the line. They got slandered and smeared endlessly, but it was nothing. Obviously, it was nothing in the grand scheme of things. It was all worth it, because as long as you can convert people to seeing the truth about what Israel is doing in Gaza, whether it's one person or 1,000 people, it's worth it. Okay, all the death threats, all the smears, all the lies, it's nothing in comparison to being able to actually be on the right side of history and to be able to convert people so they also apply pressure and potentially one day down the line put an end to this madness, put an end to this bloodshed.
The infighting has always been bad, right? But I think like this new emergence of Palestine and Israel has really just completely shaken up the whole party, because it's almost as if you can be the furthest left person you've ever met. You could say, I don't want borders, ACAB, all the things, right? But if you say, I don't have a position on Palestine and Israel, then you are the enemy, right? And
canceled.
And this is part of the issue, is that we are finding reasons to shrink our tent. And in a time where we should be expanding.
That's bullshit, by the way. That's bullshit. You are fucking shrinking the tent. You are shrinking the tent. There are more people that are pro-Palestine than pro-Israel right now, all around. And when you don't take a stance against one of the most consequential issues of our time, it's clear, black and white, by the way, is genocide, right? You got a majority of the American population even recognizing that it's genocide, and you won't take a stance on it. You are the one who's making the tent smaller, because people look at that and go, why the fuck should I trust you? You can't even say that this is a genocide and we have to put an end to it, even from a partisan perspective. It doesn't make any sense. This is an objectively, this is not only a moral stance that you could take, but it's also now objectively a popular stance that you can take. So when you don't take a stance on this issue, all you're doing is telling people that you are bought and paid for. All you're telling people is that you are just like everybody else in mainstream news. You're just like everybody else in politics, refusing to actually listen to the cries coming from the base of support. You are refusing to listen to the demands, the reasonable and just demands that people are making that want to vote for the Democrats, that still feel like the Democrats are supposed to be the counterbalance against growing fascism around the world.
Our tent. This is where my personal frustration comes in, because I'm like, listen, we can all have our own beliefs and that's fine. The infighting.
Like, I think this was immoral to say even in December 2023, because it was obvious what Israel was doing, right? But the very fact that you're still saying it now, when the issue has swung dramatically in the opposite direction, in the direction of the truth, is insane. You are lying to yourself and lying to the people that are watching that podcast in order to continue justifying getting money from the Democratic Party, who doesn't want you to say those things, who doesn't want you to take an active stance on these things. Yeah. Poll from October 2023. It's actually not surprising. I posted this on IG on October 2023 because support for cutting off weapons to Israel was already a 50-50 issue. 53% of Democrats were already saying that we should not send weapons and supplies to Israel on October 19th, 2023, 2 weeks after. This is a fucking huge problem. This is emblematic of the problem with them messaging, okay? They are too afraid to take a stance on anything. They're too afraid to lead. Or rather, when they do want to actively lead and change the attitude of the base, they only do so in the direction of moving right. The base could be like, hey, we want fucking healthcare. What are you doing? And they'll be like, no, you can't have it. And you should stop asking us that. And it's actually bad and wrong to demand free healthcare. What the fuck do you want? When it comes to immigration, there'll be people in the base that are like, what are you doing? Immigrants are our neighbors. They're beautiful. They're wonderful. They're a part of our communities. Please stop saying immigrants are fucking scary. Republicans are saying immigrants are rapist monsters. And then if you turn around and say, no, immigrants are actually a national security threat, the only time where you're unafraid to lead, I guess, is when you're trying to move your base more into the right wing. And if you do that, then of course you're going to fucking lose elections to the right. And they're going to keep going more far right. There has never been a time in American history where the Democrats have been able to successfully outflank the Republican Party in contemporary American society. There's never been a moment where the Democrats have been able to successfully outflank the Republicans on right-wing sentiment. They do not own patriotism. They do not own the military. They do not own being the pro-war party. And they shouldn't, by the way, regardless. And they do not own cutting the welfare state, no matter how hard they gut it themselves. Okay? I have repeated this a million times over in my last 12 years of being a fucking professional political commentator. And in that process, conditions have only gotten worse. And the Democrats have become even more feckless and even more right-wing in the process. And they just keep fucking losing. And they keep losing to an increasingly worse, increasingly more violent, increasingly more belligerent right-wing. And they just keep going, I don't know how this happened. I guess it's because of the left. My mentality is there are blue no matter who voters, but they will always vote blue. They are not going to, if someone is voting for Joe Biden, if someone is willing to vote for Kamala Harris, they're not going to fucking not vote for Bernie Sanders. What are you, stupid? But there are plenty of other people that aren't even Democrat voters that don't consider themselves to be Democrats. And I'm not meaning like they're radical leftists or whatever, because there are certainly radical leftists or whatever that would vote for the Democrats if it was like a more radical candidate. But there are a lot of people who just simply don't vote that could be capped voting if the Democrats actually abided by at least like Bernie Sanders' message. Okay? And the blue no matter who guys are going to come along anyway, because they're already harm reduction voters. This is true. I'm a field lead for Zoran and meta voter who doesn't like Zoran's policies, but will vote for him because he's the Dem. Exactly. Exactly. It's actually not surprising. I posted this in IG on October 2023 because support for cut-off weapons to Israel was already a 50-50 issue, and anyone with eyes could see what was about to happen. What is new in 2025 is that the elite opinion has now shifted against Israel. Yeah. Just a remarkable shift on military aid to Israel, by the way. Do you support or oppose the United States sending more military aid to Israel for their efforts in the war with Hamas? August 27th, 2025, yesterday, opposition is at 60%. 60% of those polled say they oppose the United States sending more military aid to Israel for their efforts in the war with Hamas. What you're implying is dangerous, let me tell you. What are we doing? If you're still not talking about this, you must be getting paid to not talk about this. And it turns out that was the point. Maybe you genuinely, organically also don't want to talk about it. And the pay doesn't hurt on top of that, but it doesn't matter.
And debunk some important misinformation. Many of you have commented about this article that came out in The Wired, asking if I've sold out, if I've taken money to push political talking points. The answer is no. Number one, this group never paid me for any content. This group never had control over any of my content. They never told me who to interview, what to say, or what not to say. They never once said you can't report on an issue. This group is a public cohort. Nothing was secret. And the point of it was to mentor smaller creators so that they can grow and that they can monetize their platform. And just like I've given speeches in the past, or I've mentored other creators in the past, this was no different. This had nothing to do with politics, had nothing to do with a political party, and had no control over the content that I ever made. And even the article writer, Taylor Lorenz, admits that. Aaron is correct that Chorus didn't pay them to post specific content. Now, she talks about disclosure requirements, but there was no payment for content, and so there is nothing to disclose. What this article is advocating for is that any of you have to disclose.
Wait, what? Did they get like a script or something to post this? How do you feel about engaging with people who hold anti-Israel sentiment that are not rooted in support for Palestinian liberation? I feel like a lot of the right are anti-Israel, but not for the best reasons, and it makes me uncomfortable to engage in conversation, even if we agree with each other. How do you approach this? You just gotta fucking hit them on avenues that they understand. Like right wingers believe in like, you know, castle doctrine and shit. That could be a more effective way. Or you're not gonna win every argument. You know, you're not gonna win everybody. It's a good question. I think a lot of people in America, especially in the right, have this like anti-Israel opinion, but then they also have an anti-Palestinian opinion, and they're just like, those guys are just fucking fighting. Why are we giving them money? And if that's what it takes for someone to like demand the shutdown weapons transfers to Israel, then I'll take it. You know, being anti-Israel right now is the same as being anti-Nazi. You can't support anti-Semitism, but if they're opposing actual support for genocide, motive is hardly the most important thing to perfect. Exactly. Now there are issues, though. There are certainly issues with the motives. Why would he need to take money if his dad's a billionaire? His dad's a billionaire? The new line for these influencers involved in the program described in an article is that, this dark money scheme was never a secret, despite what the contract said and what the creators were told. But this is very easy to debunk. Point me to one video where any of these content creators revealed that they were receiving funding from 1630 Fund, dark money group, prior to our article. If the 1630 funding was public, then point me to one video where they disclose this funding. Like, do you guys understand? Not only do I have an issue with like political commentators getting paid, right, to do like certain kind of messaging pushes, okay? Not only do I take issue with that in general, because like obviously that spells that like you're buyable, right? They can just like buy you, and I don't think you're independent at that point. Or if you're gonna do that, you could just be like, this is something that I agree with already, and they were willing to give me money, and that's why I'm doing it. Right? Like that's, I guess, like the most honest way to go about it. Right? But it's also a major failure in general for the Democrats. Like it literally fails to do the job. If the Democrats' goal here is to try and bring more people to their side at a time when there should be unprecedented support for the opposition party, then you have to speak on certain issues that the party itself is not choosing to speak on. Otherwise, you are going to lose the messaging war to grifters on the right who will dominate the field. That is precisely the reason why Nick Fuentes is dominating the field right now. Okay? He is seen as an earnestly anti-Israel person on the media side, on the independent media side. Tucker Carlson is seen as an earnestly anti-Israel person on also the independent media side. And he's a very important voice in the right-wing movement. When liberal Democrats who are getting paid by the Democratic Party are refusing to speak on these atrocities, they are literally leaving this entire realm of media. They're leaving a massive void in the ecosystem here to unironically allow right-wing grifters to fucking take advantage of.
Disclose where you work, what you do for a living, how much you make, and who your CEO is. That means I have to disclose that a bar prep company has paid me to help grade bar exam essays. But I want to make clear that...
Who's paying you to say this? You, the viewers. The Piker Broadcasting Service is only sponsored by you, the viewers. You can subscribe for $6 or for free with a Twitch Prime, or by connecting your Amazon Prime account to your Twitch account, where you get one free Prime subscription a month. Piker Broadcasting Service maintains its editorial independence through your voluntary contributions. We don't even run ads at the Piker Broadcasting Service. You will never see ads on the Piker Broadcasting Service. There will be a sponsor stream here and there, like maybe some gaming stuff, but overall, it's you, the viewers. Are you being paid by P creators to say this? Yeah, classic. President Biden stands with Israel. I'm so proud of this General Assembly speech. I'm proud to call him my president. Kamala Harris is clear. She does not support an arms embargo to Israel. Oh, come on, man.
If there was ever a situation where a quote-unquote dark money...
Like, I don't even think it's ridiculous to disclose your funding. If you're doing a fucking ad, you should tell people that you're doing a fucking ad. There's a reason why, under normal circumstances, it's illegal to not disclose it. Unfortunately, of course, our current regulatory agencies are completely crippled, so they're not going to deal with this at all. The Democrats aren't trying to bring more people in and expand their base. They're riding on Trump being fascist and unpalatable for the midterms. Their approach has been, we don't have to change anything and sit on their hands. Yeah, and that's a devastating prospect. And the real reason why that's a devastating prospect is because they are deeply and unimaginably unpopular right now. And no one is seemingly looking at why they're so unpopular when they should be organically popular because of how unpopular the Trump administration is. But because they're not doing anything, people just look at them and go, you guys are fucking losers. You're not doing shit. And under the duopoly structure, if people fucking despise the Republican Party for its violence and its reactionary policies and its the resentment that they breed towards the Republicans, and then they have no avenue to actually vote for a party that is like going to actively combat them, actively present hurdles with the Democrats, they're just not going to vote. They're just going to get angry and they're not going to vote. That is precisely what happened this last election.
Group tried to pay me to push a narrative? I'd say absolutely not. But that hasn't stopped this online firing squad from emerging. And it's funny, the people that are attacking me online are traditional journalists who are threatened by the work that I do, and also bad faith actors who have spent their entire last 2 years that I've been on this platform attacking me. So I'm not going to stop, and I want you to know that if you have any questions, comment them below.
I've never attacked this person because I don't know who he is. Okay? So if he's like trying to say that I genuinely don't know what he does. I'm completely oblivious to a lot of like the TikTok stuff. This is the first time I'm seeing this shit, you know. I know about this person. This person look crazy, but ultimately it seems like there is a lot of it seems like there's a lot of the same old talking points coming out.
Article in
this is
Wired
a 7-minute video
yesterday
on TikTok. Yeah, I've really enjoyed your commentary and think you have really great takes, but the lack of coverage in Gaza honestly turns me away now, regardless of the validity of the article. I don't get it. They pay you $8K a month just because, no strings attached. That kind of feels like what you're saying. You took money from a Zionist group during a genocide, no PR spinning and changing the facts. The lack of transparency is what people are upset about. I'm good with this. I did my research on it, and I don't see an issue. The left has to catch up to the far right. They've been killing it, like you said, especially on social media. Let's go. Okay, if the left is losing to the fucking far right, you need to understand there's a key reason for it. And that's not just because of moneyed interest. That's not just because like money dominates this fucking field. That's one of the reasons. But the other reason is because the right is in tune with like organically developing resentment movements that they immediately fold back into the Republican Party. Whereas the left, or not the left, but like liberal content creators and the Democrats actively are more invested in like getting their base to just believe in harm reduction narratives when that has been a demonstrable failure. Putting the same harm reduction narratives in front of more people over and over again is not obviously going to fucking allow you to secure a victory here. It failed last election cycle. This is worse than Trump won, because at least in Trump won, there was a movement towards more progressive politicians and more progressive politics that the establishment Dems basically gave way to. They didn't actively fucking try to shank the left flank. They realized that the Trump issue was so pervasive and so scary that they actively stood by as the left grew, and you know they listened to the demands being made by the base, so much so that they even did those messaging bills about Medicare for all. That's the reason why Kamala Harris ran as a pro Medicare for all candidate in the primaries after losing, of course. But there was a reason why so many of the Democrats that were on that stage were either actively trying to fight back against Medicare for all, or were just straight up saying that they're pro Medicare for all. He mentions you at 055.
But to say, how could you do this to us? I knew back in 2021 when you had the following to say that you must have been getting paid by someone, and here's the proof. And I was not even going to give this the time of day, but my relationship with you, my actual audience, is the most important thing. And so I decided to do this segment. I also was told that other creators, like a Twitch streamer named Hasan Piker, were covering this in ways that don't reflect the reality of the situation and are perpetuating false.
Okay, first of all, I just read the article, okay? I didn't like cover it in a particular way. I just covered the article. Also, I've known David for years. For me, I normally stay away from, you know, yelling about like Brian Tyler Cohen or David or any of these guys, because like there are certain issues that I just know they're not going to talk about, whatever. But as long as they're like cordial, as long as they're like, you know, focusing most of their efforts on combating the Republicans and whatnot, even if I don't agree with a lot of key problems here, I think it's you know, it's whatever. David saying a Twitch streamer is insane given the disparity in your respective reach. Yeah. I don't know. It is what it is.
Falsehoods about what is and isn't going on. Now, I can't speak to the motives of the people that wrote the article or those that are reacting to it. I can't get in their heads. All I can do is tell you what's going on, and then you can judge and you can make an assessment of me. Now, I also want to mention, I'm aware that many of the people I'm hearing of aren't even part of my audience. They're doing the, well, now I'm unsubscribing, and they mostly were never subscribed. And
this is a threat to their bag. They'll escalate the conflict to all-out war before they'll make any concessions. All I'm saying is, if you truly care about fighting against Donald Trump, if you truly care about undermining the growth of fascism in this country, you have to look within yourself, okay? You have to look within yourself. You have to realize that the same old business as usual, Democrats are actually the harm reductionist party, is not going to move you across the finish line. Or even if it does carry the Democrats across the finish line, if the final attitude from the Democrats is reflected in the Kamala Harris campaign, and it's just more militant military, like a more lethal military and a more militant border policy, then is it even good that the Democrats won in that regard? Like, it's just not. It's a race to the bottom. Okay, I care about policies first and foremost. That's what's most consequential. Okay, that's what's most consequential for me. I don't give a shit about what the letter is next to the fucking name of the politician. I care about what they're going to fight for. Okay, are they going to fight for us, or are they going to fight for the bag? And it's clear that when Democrats are openly fighting for the bag, it causes them to take terrible positions and terrible stances that make them look like they're phony, that make them look like they're insincere. And if content creators on the liberal side of the political spectrum are also reflecting that same kind of like inability to address and always waiting for the mass momentum to swing in that direction, always afraid to lead people to the correct side of an argument by actively counter messaging, they're always going to lose to the Republicans, who will never stop counter messaging. Republicans never stop. They run as though they are running every single day, as though there's an election every single day. Democrats remember that there's an election every 4 years and then act surprised when they fucking lose. One problem is that in the Democratic Party, there's no penalty for failure. Chuck Schumer gets to be in leadership forever, even though the party is reaching record low popularity. It's considered more important for these people to retain their positions than for the party to win. Obviously, a party that was interested in winning would oust these fools and put in new management. If they made Bernie the Senate minority leader, they'd be a lot more popular, but they don't, because it's not about winning. It's about a small group of people clinging to power. Yep, that's it. This is why we say it's like two sides of the same coin. It's just like a lighter version, a diet version of the far right, insane Republican Party. Very important information here. In Detroit, you need to go up to Hazel Park and get Louis' Detroit-style pizza. You got it. When will we watch the second half of the Richie Torres interview? Right now. We're going to go into it in a second. Okay? Anyway, I'm not going to watch this whole thing, but I guess it's like a lot of the same old, where they're basically just saying, it seems like they're simply stating that the article is not correct. And I'm not entirely sure on why they're saying the article is not correct. They're basically just saying like all of the stuff that Taylor reported on is just untrue. And obviously Wired Magazine and Taylor Lorenz have they have fact checkers, you know? That's just not how this works. You can't just like present a completely made up reality. This is Wired Magazine, right? This is not like some crazy alt-right website or whatever. And therefore, every single piece of information that you read from the Wired Magazine article is going to be confirmed through leaked information, background information that you arrive at. Like there is it's clear. Taylor responded.
Since my article came out yesterday about the 1630 Fund funding a bunch of these Democratic influencers through this secret program, a bunch of these influencers have spread just the most absurd lies sort of in response, which I think is quite revealing. I think that sort of speaks to their transparency and commitment to the truth. But I just want to clear some things up. So some of these creators have said, well, I never hid of my affiliation with Chorus. Here I am right here on the Chorus website. No one is arguing that. I've reported on these people's affiliations with Chorus. I've written about Chorus even prior to this article. the point is that none of them disclosed that they were receiving money from a dark money group, the 1630 fund. None of them have ever disclosed, as far as I've ever seen, their relationship with the 1630 fund. And that is the crux of it. Chorus is just the middleman. They're just running the program. The 1630 fund is the powerful dark money group that is funding this effort. And so if you see these people online saying, well, this was never a secret, I always disclosed it, please point me to where they've ever said that they were receiving payments from the 1630 fund.
They're saying they didn't get paid for specific posts. They were trying to worm their way out of it. Also saying no one told them what to say. They're denying that they are paid. Yeah, I think what's going on here is they're in a weird way trying to say, if I'm taking what they're saying at face value, it feels like they're saying these guys they really like us and they gave us money for no reason, no obligations. They didn't even tell us to disclose it. We just chose not to disclose it, but they just gave us money because they really like us, which is ironic because that's literally the Tim Pool argument for Tenet. Now, of course, there's a difference between like a foreign adversary using like a shell company to fund American politicians to take a stance that's like pro foreign adversary versus a dark money group funding an American dark money group funding pro Democrat Party liberal content creators. Like, clearly one is way more commonplace, especially on the right. But it's interesting that their counter here is to simply say, nah, they just gave us money, dog. It's like, what are you, fucking stupid? Like, you're going to say no to free money?
Went through and looked at these contracts. The stipulations in the contract are very clear that creators cannot disclose the identity of their funder, the 1630 fund. And actually, after I started reporting my article as well, creators were told that they were not allowed to speak to me, they were not allowed to speak to the press, et cetera, et cetera. So I don't know what to tell these people other than you were not open and transparent about the fact that you were receiving money from a dark money fund, or that you were part of a scheme, a program run by this dark money group. And I think that is the problem here. Dark money in politics is a huge problem. It's been a significant problem on the right for years, and I've covered that as well. But as somebody else put it online, Democrats also using sort of dark money, shady tactics that are described in our story as unethical. That doesn't help the problem. That's like fighting fire with more fire, like pouring fire onto the fire. It doesn't bring transparency to our political system. It doesn't engender trust in independent media.
I'm going to keep it a $1.50. If the Democrats were, if the Democrats were actively pushing back against the Trump administration, actively pushing back against what's going on in Gaza, and they were funding initiatives, maybe not through dark money, and the people that were getting funded were disclosing it, like, I wouldn't have as much as a problem with this. Okay, maybe that puts me in a biased predicament or whatever. I still think you should disclose when you are getting paid, right, by any number of different like political organizations, especially if you want to remain a political commentator that is like earnest and honest and explaining to their audience that, like, these are the places that are funding me, right? Transparency is a huge part of this process. This is the whole point of independent media. We're supposed to be like different. We're supposed to be different than fucking MSNBC and CNN and shit. Yeah. I guess like some people were trying to say I was also a part of this group or something, which is really funny. I can confirm that Hasan was not approached for this program. I didn't see Austin on the list either. The 90 influencers involved appear to be primarily centrist pro-DNC Dems who have not spoken about Palestine / are pro-Israel.
And also, I'll just clear up something else, is that these people have accused me of taking dark money. Nothing could be. I've never taken money from any sort of dark money group, ever. I'm on a Omidyar Network Reporters in Residence program right now. Omidyar Network is not a dark money group. What are you talking about? This is a reporting fund that is not dark money because there's a level of transparency to it. And whereas these dark money groups are not subject to the same levels of transparency. So It's very sad to see these influencers lashing out, but as they say, a hit dog hollers or whatever, clearly they feel put on blast. But let's be honest here, and let's all work towards
Weird Omidyar Fun 1630. That's the least surprising thing I've ever heard. Pierre Omidyar is the reason why The Intercept existed initially, for the record. He's an interesting dude. He is like, you know, I don't always find myself agreeing with a lot of his initiatives, a lot of his opinions, but he is one of those guys that's been like weird in terms of like being invested in having investigative reporting take place. If they aren't being told what to say, then all those people noted in the article should just say Israel bad. What do you see the shit Dem party defenders doing? More their audiences turn on them. I think they're just like actively going to actively try to defend their you know, honest intentions. They're going to say like, no, we didn't do this because of money. We did it. They just gave us money for free and you're stupid.
And so I'm aware of that.
Because remember, a lot of this stuff is just like parasocial.
But it doesn't matter because I want to make sure my audience hears from me about this. Now, the most important thing to say is that the idea behind this group is exactly what I've been advocating for years. It's for years I've been saying.
I mean, I will say it's not very surprising to me, at least, that like there are a lot of left content creators on the independent media side, some of which are very popular, myself included, Chapo Trap House, Majority Report. And I don't think these guys went to them at all. One must ask the question, why? Why is it? You know, perhaps it's because if you have a truly anti-establishment opinion, it's not just like marketing, then it's not likely that you are going to have billionaires that fund you through dark money groups so that you can actively demand that they no longer be billionaires. This is not happening.
Left needs to organize independent media in the way that the right has been doing. The left needs to fund independent creators the way that the right does. The right has won even arguably presidential elections.
Yeah, I think they're also saying, yeah, this is the argument. This is the meta. Well, the Republicans do this too, and if we got to fight fire with fire, this is how we got to do it. And it's like, you're just making an argument to get money from the Democratic Party. That's crazy. This is organizer memes. Outside groups paying influence isn't bad, by the way. It's how we catch up to the right. The issue at hand is how we build the stuff. I said we don't have a vertically integrated media landscape. The independent left is seen as spoilers / antagonistic to Dem goals. Establishment is now playing catch up to build lib content creators. We don't want blue Charlie Kirks. We want the party to fight to improve our lives. Hi, I agree with a lot of what you're saying. I don't want blue Charlie Kirks, but I do want a rich left media ecosystem, and that does involve paying creators. It was a different conversation. I covered DSA out of pocket. Many creators couldn't. The Dems will have to fix themselves or flame out regardless. Zoran shows how when we have good candidates, we don't have to spend as much on influencers, but it still needs plenty of investment. You yourself benefited from the infrastructure of TYT. The how is everything. Yeah, we're going to TYT really translate to major viewership, which is why he spent the first year on Twitch with sub 500 average viewers, with the first 6 months being sub 50. He developed skills and connections there. He had a stable income there. These aren't stains on his character. It's conditions that impact who is able to spend time building a project that, especially for streaming, has a real cost, a barrier to entry. Yeah, I mean, I was making like 20 grand a year. So, and by the end of my career at the TYT, I was making like what, almost 60 grand a year. Yeah, this is the major problem. Okay, you're right. When you say 0 people come to this conclusion naturally, okay, this is the issue. If the people that are getting paid by the Dems are saying shit like, Elisa Slotkin is becoming one of my favorite Democrats, like, you are just taking money from the Dems to spit back. You're taking money from the from the Democratic Party to spit back these kinds of takes for absolutely no one. You know what I mean? For no one. And maybe you're doing this so you can inevitably down the line get invited to the White House, or you're doing this because maybe down the line you might get a bag from the Democrat groups like the one that we're talking about. But whether this is paid for or, a Noam Chomsky style, like personal filter that you're applying, it doesn't change the dynamic that it's just like an idiotic message to put out there, because this is just like objectively untrue. Elisa Slotkin is not a good Democrat at all. She sucks. And so many people can see it. So instantly saying that is not going to actually convert people. It's just going to make the people that like Elisa Slotkin in the Democrat establishment go, see, that's a good one right there. That's a good Gen Z. I think that account was trying to say that it's not a problem for people to make money externally from content creation. The problem is that they are made to say or not say in the disclosure, but we shouldn't reject all funding as a concept. I personally don't do it. I think it's not good. And I've literally worked with PACs, like not PACs, but I've worked with like organizations, right? I have worked with advocacy organizations, and in the process, they like have a marketing budget and they want to pay me, and I say no. But it's like, the reason why I say no is because Ferdinand Slip, yeah, shut up. The reason why I say no to it is because, well, one, I don't need it because the Piker Broadcasting Service is sponsored by you, the viewers, for you, the viewers. Yes, bought. I'm bought by my viewers. But it's like, but I'm not going to, like the immigration one with Rashida, exactly. I've talked about this already, right? At the time, I even disclosed it, right? And the reason why I don't feel the need to do it is because I don't need it, and I want to help these organizations already, right? But if there is a content creator who's like much smaller, for example, and they need this to build out an infrastructure for themselves, and like that's fine as long as they disclose it, it's all right. But once again, not only should you disclose it, you should be open and honest about like where you align with this advocacy organization. Okay, but more importantly, you should also, you should also be speaking out about issues that you care about. It's not good for building out a robust audience for yourself anyway if you just come across like a different version of Anderson Cooper, right? Like you can't be Wolf Blitzer but young. There's a limit to the organic audience you can develop anyway. I'm saying this as a content creator, but you are in a comfy position with the option to reject the money though. I mean, I've been approached by groups like this when I was much smaller. I still said no, for the record. And not only that, but I'm not even disparaging people that would take money like this. It's just important to disclose it and important to explain like what the limitations are. Yeah. United We Dream Action tried paying you for their marketing and you openly declined it. Yes. What boggles my mind is that these incredibly young influencers and David Pakman expended all their authenticity capital they had for a bag while handcuffing themselves to the sinking ship that is the Dem Party with no recognition that they were doing nothing to actually improve the Dem Party and its platform. Yeah. What is this? No motion. Democrats paid $8,000 a month for this. The girlies are making edits of Gavin Newsom to Lana Del Rey music on TikTok. It's over. He's now the king of America. I don't make the rules. Wildest part about this Dem paid a show for it. Yeah, Hakeem Jeffries. Breaking news interview with leader Hakeem Jeffries by this activist. 164 views. It's crazy. They're literally just like paying for loyalty with the hopes that eventually they'll be able to have an impact, like a lasting impact on the minds of an audience that they will develop here. This was Olivia's old profile. Communism bad. Hope this helps. When you say abolish capitalism, what do you mean? Abolish ICE, Black Lives Matter, free Palestine, abolish capitalism, liberate the oppressed. Anyway, yeah, that's when she was part of Gen Z for Change and cool. I know. Some people start off and their ambition gets in the way. They're on the right side of politics. They do their advocacy with what they believe in. They advocate for things that they believe in. They want to make change in the world. They want to be a positive force. And then ambition gets in the way. And then all of a sudden, they're no longer as invested in being a positive force in the world. Okay? Eddington actually had a good take on this as well.
Because they're organized with regard to online and independent media. They're killing us. We've been so behind. And this kind of support for creators is exactly what I've been advocating for. Now, the article is riddled with inaccuracies, and they're not.
It blows my mind, by the way, that like Democrats could just, be pro Medicare for all and be for public housing, be for free college, and take a serious anti-war stance. And they would literally, for free, by just changing this attitude and changing this communications problem, For free, they would win back a lot of these fucking voters that don't want to vote for them because they don't believe in them. And yet, instead, they spend $20 million trying to find the next Joe Rogan of the left or whatever, and then they spend another fucking shit ton of money through these billionaire-funded shadow groups to get a legion of liberal content creators to also churn out the same shit that they're saying with no real tangible evidence of success. How come he doesn't get his thesis was incorrect? Yeah. As we speak, progressives are tuning out due to understandable despondency over the last night's results. I won't speak about others, but I've lost 10,000 YouTube subscribers overnight. When the right loses, they fund operations like Turning Point, invest in media, etc. If we abandon now, we see total control to these lunatics. Not a good idea. Yeah, the reason why that happened was because this was a false reality that was presented, and the audience felt like they were lied to. Like, there are definitely a lot of people who just check out when they're like, well, you know, the election didn't go the way I wanted it to, and into it. Certainly. That's like a thing that happens. Obviously, I mean, it didn't happen to me, but part of the reason for why it didn't happen is because, like, win or lose, like, I have a consistent, principled stance on a lot of these fucking issues that I advocate for. So people are not coming in here because, like, the Democrats want to win or the Republicans are going to win. They're coming in here to learn about what the fuck's going on in the world and get a better understanding of what might happen next. What is this? Yeah, $1 million plus raised, 2,500 plus volunteers, 7 million plus organic social impressions at capacity events across rural Maine. No super PAC, no billionaire or DC support. If this isn't a movement that can defeat Susan Collins and deliver change to Washington, I don't know what is. Yeah, Graham Plattner is next up. Omar Fateh, hopefully, as well. Once again, I will say, with respect to Taylor, there are a lot of people who don't like Taylor for her different opinions on you know, a multitude of different issues, or the way she gets into she gets into fights. Sometimes it's like totally fucking worthwhile, for the record, but it does not matter. Her work speaks for itself. I've always said this, okay? She's a great reporter, if not one of the best culture reporters out there. 100%. Also, sometimes good journalism requires you to be a little crazy, all right? Just remember that. Some of the best are just a little out there at times, okay? You got to look at her work, and her work speaks for itself. That's it. So I don't want to hear no fucking hater talking here. What's crazy about Taylor, she is one of the most persistent, one of the most tenacious investigative reporters on internet culture shit I've ever seen, okay? She is a mad lad. Straight up. And you need that. Anyway, if you had her on, yeah. All right.